Hello and welcome back to another episode with BasisPointInsight.com. I am Krishna Devan, your host, and joining me today is Mr. G Chandrashekhar, a policy expert on matters agricultural. He is consulted by policymakers and regulators. And who more do I go to understand more about this whole nuances of the Indo-US agricultural trade, the deal itself, and more specifically, the agricultural part of the deal than Chandra himself. Chandra, welcome to the show. There has been a lot of noise, information, disinformation, misinformation about this deal. Where are we placed? What is the truth?
I love that word noise. Yes, exactly. I think that one word describes everything. Number one, there is no deal yet. Second, there is an intent to strike a deal, which means what has now happened is
Okay.
that the US and India have created a framework to work together, and details will be filled as we go along. And there is a joint statement between the US and India. And because you said we will focus more on agriculture, there are of course other related areas also. I just want to read one line from the joint statement issued on the 7th of February. It says India will eliminate or reduce tariffs on all US industrial goods and a wide range of US food and agriculture products, including dried distillers grains, red sorghum for animal feed, tree nuts, fresh and processed fruit, soybean oil, wine and spirit, and additional products. This is what India and the US have agreed. This is what US proposes, that India eliminate tariff completely or very substantially reduce tariff on all these products. What is important is already India is a fairly large importer of a number of agriculture commodities from the US, like, for example, the tree nuts. What we call dry fruits here in the US are called tree nuts, like walnut, pistachio, almond, etc., etc. We import all of that from the US, and US is very large. California, particularly, a large producer and exporter. We import a lot of cotton from the United States. In last year before, US was the largest exporter of cotton to India, but in 24-25, Brazil overtook, and Brazil became the largest exporter of cotton to India. But be that as it may, there has been a two-way trade between India and the US. From our side, we export textiles, garments, ready-made garments. We also export seafood, spices, a whole lot of other things. So there is a two-way trade in which India actually enjoys a $45 billion goods trade surplus with the United States. And my sense is that Trump sees this as an opportunity, that why should the US have a trade deficit with any country like India, and therefore he wants to balance the trade, balance the bilateral trade, and therefore he wants to strike a deal with India, and that's the starting point of this deal. Now, number one, number two. Again, my sense is because China is able to stand up to Trump and his threats and his and all his actions, and the U.S. Uh, faces a $280 billion trade deficit with China. China has a trade surplus, $280 billion, and but China has now refused to buy a large number of American goods, and therefore he has to look for another market. And who else than such a big market, 1.4 billion people, India, and therefore he wants to look at India as an outlet for a large number of American products. Yeah, and
Right.
therefore, there is no deal yet. There is a framework within which we need to work out a deal, and that's the correct position in my. Yeah.
So within this framework, what is the push and shove that we are? Where are we being pushed, and what are we shoving back?
Right. I think we are open to importing cotton. We are open to importing soybean oil. We are open to importing lentils. Even otherwise, India imports. India imported last year 7 million tons of various pulses, including lentils, from the US. Okay. Last year, again, when I say last year, 24-25 fiscal, India imported 5 million bales of cotton, including from the US. Correct. Last year, 24-25, India imported more than 4 million tons of soybean oil from various sources, including mainly Argentina and Brazil. A small quantity came from the US. And therefore, we are already importing large quantities. But there is a tariff on, for example, on soybean oil, there's a tariff of 10%. He wants India to eliminate the tariff on soybean oil that is of American origin, US origin. And therefore, one, our doors are open already because we want to import and we are importing. Our import policy is liberal, but in some cases there are tariffs, and we want those tariffs eliminated. And
All right.
similarly on dry fruits, there is a tariff. It is not ad valorem. It is something like 50 rupees a kilo on pistachio, etc. And you want those those customs duty rates also reduced.
Right. Just moving away from agriculture for a bit,
Yeah.
there was a slight change in that statement which said India is committed to improve. To now it is moved to saying that India is tentatively can import up to $500 billion worth of US goods over the next 5 years, not just agri. Do you really see that kind of space available?
Yeah. No, absolutely not. I think it was a statement made probably at the heat of the moment, put it that way. But $500 billion over a 5 year time frame, roughly $100 billion a year. What is it we'll import from the US? That's a big question. And therefore, now a statement from the White House says it is an intention. There is no commitment, but it is an intention. And therefore, obviously, that intention will be watered down very, very substantially. But the US is keen to supply non-agri goods and services and commodities, probably engineering products, energy products, aircrafts, or a whole lot of other things. Yeah, and therefore you can expect a lot of American commodities to come into India, including crude oil, including coal, and of course we are already buying a lot of aircraft from the US. All that will accelerate.
Right. All trade deals are supposed to be a win-win situation. Both parties need to feel happy when they walk away from the table. What is it that India can hope to benefit from the trade deal? Okay, we need to import. Yes, we will import. But what is it that we can import which is good for the country, good for the wider economy, and does not create a lot of political problems?
Correct. It's a very tricky question. Yes, any trade deal, any trade agreement has to be, it can't be one sided. It has to be bilateral. That's what is bilateral trade agreement all about. And therefore, generally these bilateral trade agreements, they cannot be, the trade surplus or deficit can remain a small amount, a small quantum. And therefore, it is not that I export $100 billion worth goods to some country, and I will buy only $100 billion. It depends on my domestic demand and supply situation. Therefore, a small
Right.
trade deficit or trade surplus is tolerable, which is normal. There is absolutely no problem at all. So the question therefore is, what is it we can import from the US without affecting our domestic growers or domestic producers, domestic demand supply fundamentals? Well, certainly there is a growing market for dry fruits, tree nuts, what are called, those will come probably at a lower rate of customs duty, which will obviously lead to higher demand within India because we are a price sensitive market, which is fine. I think after COVID from 2020-21, I'm seeing there is a renewed health consciousness among people. People are leading more healthy lifestyle, eating more healthy foods. Therefore, tree nuts or dry fruits are a part of healthy eating habits, and therefore, even on television, you find your advertisement of almonds, etc. All of that, which is fine. I think
Correct.
that will come.
Yeah.
India will continue to import cotton. Now, cotton import, the US will probably force India to buy more cotton from the US than from other origins like Brazil, which I see as a very, very distinct possibility. Similarly, soybean oil, 4.5 million tons of soybean oil worth $5 billion. We are importing every year, Argentina, Brazil, etc. The US will now try and maximize its export of soybean oil to India at zero duty. That is what they'll try. That is not going to lead to higher imports into India. In my view, America will replace Argentina and Brazil as a supplier. Therefore,
All
our
right.
market here cannot absorb unlimited quantities of soybean oil. Our limit is about 4.5 million tons of soybean oil, and therefore the US will get a good share of that soybean oil import. But currently, there is a 10% duty on crude degummed soybean oil. Trump will make sure that we eliminate that tariff under
All
under the agreement. Therefore, it will come at zero duty, which could be potentially cheaper for India and good for Indian consumers. Yeah.
Chandra, you've been tracking agriculture and biotech industry for a while now. What is this resistance to GM crops? Or is it science based? Is it ideology? Or is it sheer ignorance? We already have gene edited uh, crops that we are having, which are hardier, giving better productivity and better shelf life. Why is it then this whole thing? I mean, is there a big, uh, is it a phantom that we are fighting, or is there something else?
Great question. I love this. Let me just go back in history. I'll take you back to 1998 with your permission.
Right,
In 1996, the United States commercialized BT cotton. BT
right,
cotton has a gene from a bacterium called Bacillus thuringiensis. That is what is BT. A lot of people assume BT is biotechnology. No, that BT cotton, that BT is a bacterium from is a gene, the gene from a bacterium called Bacillus thuringiensis. Okay, in 1996 they commercialized. It was a great success. In 1998, early 1998, the government of India decided that we should study that technology. Those years, our production was very low, 14, 15, 16 million bales of cotton. We were importing 2 or 3 million bales of cotton to feed our textile industry. We had shortfall in production. So in 1998, the government of India sent a delegation of scientists, 6 scientists, to the US to study this technology. KD, I want to mention, I was selected by the government of India as the only non-scientist, as an economist, as a journalist. I was with the Hindu that time, business line editor. I went with the delegation. I was selected by Dr. R.S. Baroda, who was the DG of the ICAR. And then I was with that delegation. I was in Cornell University, I was in Washington, D.C. to meet the USDA. We went to St. Louis, a Monsanto company, all of that. I contributed to a part of the report, strongly recommending that we must, because cotton and textile industry is very critical for India, labor intensive. Therefore, we must look at this technology, all of that. And then we came back, and the rest is history. 2023, we actually what should I say, commercialized BT cotton. After that, our production started to go up. In about 10 years, 8 years, after 2003, I'm sorry, did I say 2023? No, 2003. From 2003, in about 10 years, our production went to 400 million bales. Okay, huge quantity, doubled, more than doubled, our production more than doubled. And our export, we became the world's largest producers of cotton and the world's largest exporters of. But what happened in the last 7 or 8 years? The Because we have not upgraded our technology, the pests are developing resistance. It's called pink bollworm, also called American bollworm. They are developing resistance to this technology. So we need to upgrade the technology. We have not done, and therefore, from the position of a net exporter of cotton, India has become a net importer of cotton. As we spoke a few minutes earlier,
Right.
we imported 5 million bales, and therefore, I've been tracking this. There is a huge controversy. 20 years ago, the US and Europe were fighting. The US says we must everything that we do should be science based and evidence based. Europe resisted biotech crops, uh, including soybean and cotton, saying we want to follow the precautionary principle. Saying I don't know what is it I'm eating. Over a long term, I may suffer, and therefore we don't want to allow. This was a standoff for a long time, 20 years ago. But many of the European seed companies opened their offices in the US, and again went into GM technology, and then eventually Bayer company from Europe bought over Monsanto itself, the American. Number one. Number two, in my view, there is a huge amount of prejudice. There is no empirical evidence that uh, genetically modified crops will have any adverse impact on human health. There is no concrete, scientifically proven empirical evidence, but there is a lot of prejudice. Number two, in our country, from 2003, for the last 22 years, we've been consuming cottonseed oil made from BT cotton, a million tons of cottonseed oil, 10 million tons of cotton seed, and 1 million tons of cottonseed oil we've been consuming. I'm sure you haven't heard any serious case of ill health. Our cattle have been consuming cotton cake, which in turn gets into the food chain
Right.
in the form of meat and poultry meat, etc. You haven't heard any serious health issue, and therefore, I think many of this is highly prejudiced, not science based, ideological, and not rooted on facts and science. I'm sorry to say, many of the people within this industry, trade and outside, are my friends, know all of them, but it is very difficult to convince them. Basically, there is a lot of disinformation. There is also a campaign. Basically, there has been a campaign against GM technology. But
Right.
as you rightly said, we are now not just BT cotton and cottonseed. We are into gene editing.
Right.
BT technology means you are injecting an alien gene into the seed and growing a crop. I'm sorry, gene editing. You are not inserting any alien gene. You are just editing the existing gene. Why
Right.
should there be a problem at all? But even there are prejudices. We need to get over this prejudice, and that needs enormous political will. And because we are not investing our agriculture with technologies, multiple technologies, including agriculture biotechnology, information technology, satellite technology, nuclear agriculture technology, drones, digitization, whole lot of things. We need to invest our agriculture with technology. Only then will we have a transformation. And therefore,
Right.
to answer the question, sorry for the long winding answer. I don't think there is anything wrong with the technology, but I think we need to educate people.
What is it that, Chandra, then holds back the country's ability to invest in agriculture? I'm sure we have got so much of subsidies going around. Uh, what is it that prevents us? Okay, fine. You have concerns about GM. Fair enough. But surely you can raise budget allocations for research in agriculture. What is it that has been holding the country back?
Exactly. You actually you said it. Look at our resources. Look at our endowments. 300 days of sunshine a year. Okay, you have 900 millimeters of rainfall. You have 7,500 kilometers of coastline. You have hundreds of rivers crisscrossing the country. You have varied agroclimatic conditions in this country. You have extraordinary biodiversity. You have a billion people to work. You have all the factors of production in favor of a huge growth in the agriculture sector. And yet, as you know, our agriculture sector is languishing. And therefore, in my view, we need to review our agriculture policies, number one. Number two, under the constitution, agriculture is a state subject. And pardon me saying, states do not, many states do not pay adequate attention to agriculture development, nor do they have enough funds to divert for agriculture development. And therefore, as a nation, time, in my view, has come to take a holistic and national view. The center and the states have to work together and come up with a solid, comprehensive national agriculture policy with regionally differentiated strategies, looking at the endowments in different regions, and then look at next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Look at the demand side, look at the supply side, evaluate human resources, evaluate technological resources, etc., and financial resources. We need to evaluate all of this and take it forward. Otherwise, I'm sorry, I think our agriculture will continue to languish because we are facing headwinds now of land constraints, water shortage, climate change.
Right. Allow me to ask you this one question. You have been associated with academia also in some way.
Yeah.
What about agricultural universities and their contribution to the whole process?
Good question. In fact, I visited a number of agriculture universities, and I want the state governments to take initiative to bring agriculture universities. And there is another institution called Krishi Vigyan Kendras, KVK. Now,
Okay.
every district has a KVK. Okay, in our country, there are probably 700 KVKs. For agriculture universities and KVKs must work with farmer producer organizations. Now, these two institutions, agriculture universities and KVKs, cannot reach 130 million farmers, but they can work with an institution called the Farmer Producer Company or Farmer Producer Organization. There are several thousand of farmer producer organizations which have 400, each one has a few hundred members. Therefore, these two institutions, KVK and AU, I would strongly think the state governments must encourage to work with FPO, uh, tell the growers, tell the farmers the good agronomic practices, uh, um, uh, input management, proper storage, processing, help link the farmer with the processor or the buyer for the processor, etc. All of that. I think this is important. This must become a national movement as far as our country is concerned. But somebody must take the initiative. My strong feeling, it devolves on the central government to take this initiative, get all the state governments on board, keep your political differences out of agriculture, it is a national cause. All of us have to work together, and over probably a 10-year time frame, we will see some major changes. Otherwise, my worry is we are going to become increasingly import dependent for a very large number of agriculture commodities, because our production is not rising, our productivity is not rising. Take soybean as an example.
Right.
If you remember, I think we did one event where I
Yeah.
said, don't import GM soybean, no need, but import the technology, and give it to the farmer. The US produces 3 tons of soybean per hectare, 3,000 kilograms. Ours is stuck at 1 ton or 1,000 kilograms for probably 20 years or whatever. We
Uh,
need technology, which is important. Cotton needs technology. Corn needs technology. We should import technology rather than the commodity. So I think it's a very vital question in my view.
right. How does all this tie in with this initiative uh, to keep the soil rich? There has been this concern about overuse of fertilizers, and there are concerns that maybe some of these imported crops could create problems for the country. Is that a real concern?
Yes, it is. It is. It is. It is. Um, I'll tell you. I've been writing and commenting on this. Uh, I strongly feel the input industry needs strict regulation and monitoring, not control. Control is different. Regulation and monitoring. Number one. Number two, farmers need education, which is where agriculture universities and the KVKs can work together to educate the farmer, to buy the right kind of seeds, make the right kind of sprays or application of pesticides, use the right combination of fertilizers, including micronutrients, because our soil is seriously deficit in zinc and boron and iron, etc., etc., micronutrient deficiency, all of that, and therefore that calls for a huge education. But if you are to, but the government must also engage with the private sector, seed companies and agrochemical companies and fertilizer companies, send out a message that it is their ethical duty, moral duty, social obligation to work with the farmers, educate the farmer, help the farmer, etc. Therefore, it can work through persuasion. If it doesn't work through persuasion, I think there has to be a mandate. One second. Another side. Look at the user industry. Large cotton spinning units, large textile industry, your large edible oilseed processing companies, edible oil refineries, etc. The dal mills. What prevents the processing industry from establishing backward linkages, from going back to the farm, work with the farmer producer company, and do contract farming? The FPOs are a great vehicle for contract farming, and therefore I would actually think large importers of commodities, large corporates that import these commodities should be mandated also to contribute to enhancing domestic production of the raw material. And I think if need be, give them some incentive. But I think unless the industry, processing industry, is forced to produce its own raw material, not merely depend on government permission to import, I think that's another way of augmenting domestic production.
Right, Chandra, I digressed a bit here from the trade deal, but could not help asking you these questions because somewhere these are interlinked with the one issue. But before I let you go, there is this issue of DDGS. Can you just
Yes.
decode what is it? I mean, I would like to understand. Sure, I'm sure our viewers and listeners would like to know what is it. There's already some
It is,
amount of GM food which is being consumed. What is this?
it is dried distillers grains, which is when corn or maize is processed and ethanol is extracted out of it, the residue that remains is dried distillers grain, and the dried distillers grain is used as poultry feed. And India, I understand, has allowed 500,000 tons of DDG from the US. Obviously, the US corn is genetically modified, BT corn, and therefore the DDG will obviously contain some protein. The challenge, the issue is protein in genetically modified crop. Therefore, DDG will have some protein. And when you feed that DDG from out of BT corn, when you feed the DDG to poultry, and then obviously the poultry meat will get into the food chain, and that's the concern. But that need not be a concern, because over the last 20 years, all those people who eat meat have been consuming uh, the animals which are fed with BT, the meal of BT cotton seed. When BT cotton seed is crushed, you get oil on the one side, you get the meal extraction on the other side. The extraction goes for animal feed. So it's already there last 20 years in your food chain. So DDG is not going to it's not going to change the game in any way. Whereas the poultry industry actually wants a lot more of feed to maintain its growth, and therefore I don't see that as a challenge. But the more DDG we import, less will be the demand for soybean extraction or soybean meal, and therefore the soybean meal industry is against DDG import. So,
All
but
right. Okay.
it's all interlinked. It's all interlinked. But what can we do? Yeah.
Right. That's the good word from Chandrasekhar. This is not the end. The deal is yet to be signed, and Basis Point will keep a track of it. Do stay tuned in for updates on the issue.